Another Dooley Noted Podcast comes to you from the Coach's Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill in Celebration Point. Hello again, everybody, and welcome into another edition of Another Dooley Noted Podcast, of course, presented by Titan MRI, our great title sponsor, and coming to you from the Shackhow and Mercadante studios. We appreciate Shackhow and Mercadante so much and all the great stuff they do, and we have a lot to talk about. I went on one radio show this week and said, "Hey, what would happen if Florida lost this game?" And I said they should shut down the program. Well, obviously, that's how confident I was in Florida winning this game, and I'm never confident. That is a good tell right there about how badly Florida played, because usually I go into almost every game, especially in the SEC, and go, yeah, I don't know, they've got this guy, and people make fun of me. You always worry too much. You know, I lived through a lot of different things in my life as watching Florida football. But this was one I go, well, they can't lose this one. And now did they lose, obviously, but they got destroyed, manhandled, assaulted at the line of scrimmage, could do nothing wrong. Great stat that went undetected. South Carolina, 1 penalty, 5 yards. That's either great discipline or the refs weren't calling much, and they weren't calling much until Florida decided to get 2 15-yard penalties in the second half of the game. But really, does any of it matter anymore? The season's basically over. It's just about going and watching Florida football for fun. And I'm not going to discourage you from going out there and watching. For one thing, you get to see the debut of Christian Robinson as defensive coordinator of Florida, because obviously, for those of you who don't know, I'm sure most of you know, Todd Grantham fired, along with John Hevesy, and it was a Sunday, Bloody Sunday kind of deal. I don't know all the details, believe me. I do. I'm so sorry. Man, all of a sudden I got something on my nose. All right. I don't know all the details, but I do know that Scott Strickland and Dan Mullen had a private conversation after all the press conference, which was the shortest press conference in the world, on Saturday night. No players allowed to talk. And then they had a little conversation, but it could have been about anything. I'm not saying I know what it was about. I've got another sneeze coming. I don't know where this is coming from, but did you put something in here? Wait a minute. It's coming. No. Okay. Here we go. Golly. Okay. So, I don't know if Scott put any pressure on Dan to make these changes. And I've said this many times. Scott has told me he doesn't like to do that with coaches, but maybe he changed his mind because things were so bad. I do know that there was a point in the press conference where I'm sure Scott Strickland and a lot of people bristled on Saturday night when he said, well, I thought we played really hard. And look, you didn't even have to watch the game to know Florida didn't play hard. All you had to do was listen to anybody in the room watching the game to know they weren't playing hard. So I don't know, whatever. It doesn't really matter why or who had the pressure here to make this happen. I will say this. Dan Mullen did a press conference just a little while ago. Lasted over right around 30 minutes, which is unusual. His press conferences have decreased in time as things have gotten worse, but today was obviously a time for him to kind of address the Gator Nation and talk to them man to man. And it was time for him to go back to being Dan Mullen. The Dan Mullen we knew and we got to know when he first got here. You know, I thought it was the best press conference. The best press conference he's done since he's been at Florida. I really did. People may not agree with me, but he was very transparent. He explained, he goes, look, we weren't getting better. We were not getting better. We were getting worse. And if you're getting worse as a team, you've got to make changes. And obviously for Florida defensively to give up twice this year these record amounts of rushing yards to teams who can't run the ball otherwise is just sad. And I know that a lot of it's personnel, but it's coaching, it's personnel, it's everything. But it still comes down to effort. It's funny because Dan would say that, we had our greatest week of practice. Of course, we had 30 guys out with the flu, but we had our greatest week of practice. And then he said, we didn't really I didn't see the effort out there, but our guys played hard. Well, you gotta make up your mind which one it is. But he was good today in terms of explaining why he did it. And I don't know that it helps anything. I think it at least takes some of the heat off of him for just a minute. But I will say this. There are a lot of people out there that feel like, no. And that's not what we want. We want everybody gone, which is kind of ridiculous for people to want everybody gone. But look, the fall from grace of Dan Mullen is historic. I've never seen anything like it, where a coach was considered one of the top 5 or 6 or 7 or 10, whatever your ranking was, coaches in the country going into the LSU game. And then all hell broke loose. LSU, Alabama, Oklahoma, and then, of course, this year, which is 4-5 and 2 wins against crappy teams. Well, 3, you count Vandy. I mean, their only really good win is Tennessee, and that's only because Tennessee's gotten good now, not because Tennessee was good then. So they're on this 3-game losing streak, and it is what it is, and you have to deal with it. And obviously this season's over, but there is something to be said about not firing coaches in the middle of the season. Now, look, I still don't think Dan Mullen's getting fired. I think if he totally pooped the bed, and by totally I would say losing to Missouri and FSU, which is totally possible, and they end up missing a bowl game, could that happen? Yeah, it could. I mean, the way they rewrote the buyout, I've seen a lot of misinformation about this, but the way I understand it, and I may be giving you misinformation, is that it's $12 million, I think, or $11 million, 12 or 11, whatever it is. But no matter when they fire him, it's going to be the same. So if they fire him now, it's the same. They fire him next year, it's the same. Doesn't change. But it's amazing to think that this is a guy that was right there on the precipice of some greatness and now is where he is. But I will say this, guys. All of it is his fault because he's a head coach. A lot of it is too much loyalty. There are a lot of other things. But I will say the reason that they lost to South Carolina, this is the reason I will tell you. Not that they lost to South Carolina, but that they got embarrassed by a bad football team. And I almost was happy for Shane Beamer because I know he's not going to be there that long. They're not very good. And they're so bad. That's why I was comfortable watching the game. I was looking forward to the game going, all right, finally I'm going to see Florida do something. This will be fun. You watch football all day and then you think this is going to be fun. It wasn't fun. But he's given Florida, and this is something that he has to address himself. And he has to address with himself. And I know, I get it. He doesn't really care what I think, but I believe this. He has given Florida an excuse not to play hard all the time. And he did it in the Oklahoma game, obviously, but I think it goes back to the LSU game of last year when they were looking at that Alabama game and thinking about plays for that, and maybe it leaked over into the players. And then he didn't, let's sit Kyle out because we want him healthy for Alabama. He could play, but we don't want to play Kyle Pitts, And they went out and they didn't play well against a bad team that was down to 60-something scholarships. So there was lesson one. We got to get ready for a different game. We're thinking about a different game. Lesson 2 was, hey, we're gonna play in a New Year's Six bowl game. And I know a lot of guys opted out, but we're not going to take it seriously. And we're going to tell everybody afterwards we didn't take it seriously. We were working on, it was like an early spring football practice. So then they go up to South Carolina, and they've had some adversity in their face. And what do? They go, I guess this is one of those games we don't really have to play hard. And they don't. And the other team does, because the other team's got a home crowd behind them. I believe, sincerely, home crowds have had a bigger advantage for, and I don't want to look at stats. I just know what I've seen. Home crowds have had a bigger advantage for the home teams than they did before COVID, because I think this year people are just more rabid, more crazy. Clearly, Tennessee fans are crazy, nuts. We saw what happened there, but I think it's all over the country. I think every home crowd I see, I go, I don't know that it's not that I don't remember it from last year. It's just that it's different. It seems louder. It seems more chaotic. It seems more crazy. And I think that, again, they ran into that kind of buzzsaw. There's so many stats about this Florida team that I'm almost getting sick of them. And I'm a stat guy, you know that. But one thing I did, because, for example, we're going to sit here and figure out what's going to happen with the quarterback situation. Here's Emory Jones now with he just can't help but turn the ball over. It's sad. But one thing that Chris Klieman, the coach at Kansas State, I had to think about it because Kansas State's irrelevant, said today in his press conference, and he is dead on right about this. The one thing that bothers me about coaches getting fired in the middle of the season, whether it's a head coach, Walt Bell at UMass, or assistant coach, is that then you turn around to the players and go, don't get into the transfer portal, stay here. You just fired my offensive line coach. I'm out. Can't have it both ways. This goes back to the same old thing with Florida. All right, you got what you wanted. Todd Grantham is gone. There's only one thing you wanted, but you got that. You think it's going to be a good recruiting class? No. I mean, look, it wasn't going to be with him. It's certainly not going to be without him because of all the uncertainty going on at the University of Florida. And that's where Scott Strickland probably needs to make a statement. But I wouldn't make that statement today because I don't know what's going to be happening in these last few games. So it is a mess at the University of Florida. I was thinking about if I did power rankings, I'd probably have Florida 12th in the SEC. That's pretty sad. All right, we will take a break. I could go on all day with this. But again, I want to give Dan Mullen credit. Great press conference today. That was a good one. We will take a break. Tom Hart is going to join us from the SEC Network and ESPN, of course. He had I keep mixing these games up, but he had the Arkansas-Mississippi State game. But I know he'll talk about all these SEC teams because he knows the SEC as good as anybody. And we'll talk about Florida's incredible, weird situation, which is that's really the only way I can put it. To think about where they were and where they are now, it's almost impossible to think about. I mean, it's just not a good football team. And I was dead wrong about their roster. I thought they had a good roster. Need to quit reading those recruiting reports. All right, so we'll take a break. We'll come back with Tom Hart. And, of course, we got all our other great things from the Shaq Allen Mercandani Studios, Hand Law, 3 things. We also have the Adams Rib Coated Go Gator the weekend. It was handed to me on a silver pallet. Not pallet. Is it pallet? Plate. Silver plate. Platter. Silver earth platter. Or pallet. The Alex Wesley Construction 12-pack. Interesting team got in there. Love where you live, Alex Wesley Construction. Leonardo's and Millhopper Quick Picks. And the Hesser and Kipke Monday Spreads. Some interesting ones. So we'll get to all that. We'll get to Tom Hart in just a minute. We'll be back here on Another Dooley Noted Podcast live from the Shaq Allen Mercandani Studios.
Titan MRI, North Central Florida's premier independent diagnostic testing MRI facility. At Titan MRI, we're focused on you, the patient, having a great customer experience. Our MRI equipment is modern and 75% quieter than any unit in its class. And our MRI unit has one of the largest openings of any of the newer high-strength MRI units, which allows comfortable scanning for potential claustrophobic and larger patients. At Titan MRI, we look forward to serving you.
Car accidents, trucking accidents, motorcycle accidents, and wrongful death. If injured or killed by the negligence of others, who will fight for the compensation you deserve? Shakow and Mercadante, 5 lawyers, more than 100 years of combined legal experience, millions in settlements and verdicts. Call Shakow and Mercadante, 371-3000. Rebuilding lives.
Another Duly Noted podcast comes to you from the Coach's Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill and Celebration Point. You can watch and listen to us on Facebook and YouTube for every podcast that we do on Mondays and Fridays at 2 o'clock. Listen to the podcast whenever on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Overcast, any of the other 39 platforms where you can find this podcast or your favorite podcast. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments section below or call me if you want to do some advertising at 352-317-3444. Hello there, everybody. I'm Pat Dooley, of course, from Another Dooley Noted Podcast. This is a great Adam Brewer, and he's just opened up a place here, Adam Brewer To Go. What would give you the idea to do this, to have a to-go place like this?
We really like the fast concept, being able to get the barbecue. Now we have this new online ordering. So before it was a call ahead carry out, quick service. We have like a curbside kind of a deal where everything's ready to go for you. And then we thought, wow, we have a really great dine-in concept, but how can we make this streamlined for the customer and make it easy and accessible for all parts of town?
Adam's Rib Co. To Go. Come on down and enjoy it.
Great food, great atmosphere, a diverse menu, everything made from scratch, plenty of space, and locally owned. These are all the characteristics of a great restaurant, and you can find each and every one of them right here in Gainesville at Ballyhoo Grill. Ballyhoo Grill prepares all of their food fresh every day, from their salad dressing to their award-winning soups. Bring your family and enjoy dinner under the Tim Trebo Tiki Hut while listening to live music. Or if you're running low on time to eat out, they also deliver through Uber Eats, Spite Squad, and Postmates. A Gainesville staple that's been open for over 30 years. Check out Ballyhoo Grill on Facebook or at ballyhoogrill.com.
Hey, this is Pat Dooley for the Gainesville Quarterback Club, and they are having a trial membership here at the end of the season. It's really a great deal. We've talked about them doing it at the beginning of the season, and what they're doing is they're offering the next 3 meetings for $100. And believe me, you get a full meal out of this, too, for every one of these meetings. It's great speakers. The meeting dates for this are November 9th, 16th, and 23rd as we wrap up this college football season. Anyone interested in taking advantage of this trial membership can RSVP the membership leader at bob.bagley@pauldavis.com, or you can just pay at the door. Okay, welcome back to another Duly Noted Podcast live from the Shakow Mercadante Studios, of course, presented by Titan MRI. We got a lot of stuff to get to, but the first thing we got to get to is our special guest and one of my favorite people in the world, Tom Hart from ESPN. You probably watched him or heard him or watched him and heard him and Jordan Rodgers on Saturday night. What a game they had, Arkansas and Mississippi State. And did you think, Tom, about maybe going down there and kicking the field goal to try to help old Mike Leach there?
I considered it. I'm not quite sure how I feel. After the game, one of the first things he said was, "We're having open tryouts. If you're a kicker and you can kick and you're on campus, come on out." I understood where he was from a point of frustration, but I don't know if those 2 kids that they trotted out there are on scholarship or not. But honestly, Pat, I found that pretty disrespectful to the players you have on your team. You'd never say that about a quarterback, right? Matt Corral went out and threw 6 picks for Ole Miss last year. Lane Kiffin didn't say, "Screw it. Anybody ever thrown a football before? Come practice on Monday. Maybe you'll make the team." But it's
But that's Mike Leach. That's he's talking about fat little girlfriends and all this stuff. I mean, it's the way he is. I mean,
it's the way he is. You're right, and he's fine right now. I mean, he's fine. They've had some good wins this year. The A&M win was really good for him. It got him up into the teens in the rankings. So you would just wonder in the SEC, the lights are bright down here, right? They're a lot brighter than they are in Pullman. And I know they have a big following in Lubbock, but they're brighter there. So if he can have just a bit of a filter and avoid ripping his own players, maybe it'll work out okay.
Yeah, exactly. Look, you've been to Gainesville a lot, I know, in your career, and we'll be here again. Not surprisingly, it is a little restless here. Obviously, the firings of Todd Grantham and John Hevesy yesterday made a dent in that, but they didn't. The Gator Nation is still up in arms. How impossible was that 40-17 score?
I mean, it's the most shocking result of the SEC season to me so far, maybe the last couple of seasons. I had South Carolina a few weeks ago at Texas A&M, and Shane Beamer says all the right things about his team, and he thinks he has guys that can win games. But here's the bottom line: South Carolina, just for perspective, in the day and age of open transfer, South Carolina has guys from. Their quarterback was at St. Francis last year,
Pennsylvania.
They have a defensive back from Wingate. They have another guy from Division II Assumption. These are the guys that I'm not talking about guys that play on special teams. These are their impact transfers in the SEC. So we had them on the road, and they couldn't block A&M's defensive line, and they couldn't get a pass off, and they couldn't run they definitely couldn't run the ball, not like they did against Florida. So not just to win the game at home, but to win it convincingly. Me and Jordan Cole were keeping tabs on it. We were just stunned when we saw that score continue to come across. Stunned.
Dan Mullen said he wasn't stunned, but he did say he was stunned today because he did say that was the last straw with Todd Grantham to take a team that offensively could not run the ball and allow them to set these all kinds of records. But I don't know what the answer is at Florida right now, and I've said this before, because you can't become a great recruiter. Either you are or you aren't. It's something in your personality, and I don't know if Dan can hire the right guys that can kind of overcome his flaws in that regard or not.
I think the most difficult aspect is going to be the longevity of his time in Gainesville and the impact that has on bringing in great coordinators. He may have the money, and obviously if Grantham was getting $1.8 million, he may have the money in the budget to hire just about anybody who he wants. But sorry about my sun glare here. At least the clouds have cleared. But can he bring somebody in if they may only have a year? Does somebody want to make that jump to Florida if they might be back on the streets as a staff in a year?
Right.
And that's always tough for guys in this position. I'm gonna close the blinds as you ask for the next one.
Yeah, that was kind of psychedelic, man. I thought I was back in the 60s. So. But I tell you one guy who would come here. I didn't mention this earlier, but Charlie Strong would come back here to Florida in a heartbeat from the Jaguars, and he knows how to recruit, and that's kind of the splash hire they need to make. They need to bring in some guys that want to be Gators and not guys that just want jobs. I think that's the point where they're at. And then Dan, I thought, had his best press conference of the year today. He had a great press conference where he was back being transparent, back being open. And he's got to go back to that guy, that I'll beat your ass and explaining why he does things.
Well, he's never lacked for confidence, right? I mean, throughout his career. But I thought, I'd heard rumblings beginning of last week that someone, whether it was Scott Strickland or others, someone's going to make it clear to Dan that he had to make a change on his staff and that there was going to be, on his part, resistance. I mean, he's been with Hevesy since Bowling Green. I mean, these guys have been everywhere. Yeah, so that shouldn't be understated how difficult that can be in the relationship business to cut somebody loose in that scenario. You mentioned Charlie Strong. The first thing that hit me is a hire like that would certainly make Scott Strickland feel better about the direction of the program, right? And whatever he's thinking right now, I think he needs some reassurances that the program will be moving in the right direction. That's one way to do it. I don't know what the other answers would be, though. I mean, because it doesn't look like those answers are coming on the recruiting trail. Your rival in the East is steamrolling its way towards the playoffs and a likely national championship, unless there's pure chaos down the road. Tennessee is playing great football lately. They had a big win Saturday night. They've got momentum. I mean, there's a lot of teams that are, I guess within the state, you've got good company, even though Miami's playing better lately. But, within the conference, there's a lot of teams with great momentum.
When I watched the Georgia-Missouri game on my multiple TVs at home, and the thing I took away from that early in the game, I said, Kirby's coaching different this year. He'll go for 4th and 5 and go deep in the end zone because he knows the other team isn't scoring, coming back the other way. And I think he's coaching a lot better because he's more loose and he's willing to open things up and allow his offensive coordinator, Monken, to do that.
It's interesting you use the word loose because that's the last thing that comes to mind. I think there's so much pressure on Kirby specifically and on that staff as a whole. We're at Sam Pittman this weekend, and obviously at Arkansas, and he said that he feels less pressure as the head coach at Arkansas than he did coaching the O-line at Georgia. In terms of pressure to win.
Surprising, yeah.
Yeah, and I did tell him, I said, well, shoot, you get to 7 wins, you'll have a statue here. You do that twice. You have multiple statues. I think the other thing when you watch Georgia games, and it wasn't readily apparent against Missouri because, they took care of business fairly comfortably early. But I think you also see the opposing coach coaching differently, knowing that points are so hard to come by that they're willing to go for it in 4th and medium or 4th and long. It's a low percentage play, but it's like playing scratch off tickets. Like, well, we're going to have to get lucky to win this thing anyway. The odds are against us, so let's take some shots. And once the opposition starts taking low percentage shots, you just play further and further into Georgia's hand. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think they don't have to be great on offense. And they can win a national championship, and they're putting up good numbers though. And a lot of it has they drew the good schedule, and that's a big key in the SEC, as you know, Tom. And hopefully we get to a point where we're playing a 9-game schedule and teams are playing each other more often instead of, it all comes down to who'd you draw? Oh, we got Arkansas, or we got Vanderbilt. That's the big thing. Let me ask you about what's going on at Kentucky. I mean, poor Mark Stoops. I mean, it's like he can't have nice things, I mean, when that team was on a roll and they were just rugged and doing things, and now all of a sudden they've lost 3 in a row. They can't stop anybody.
Their running back 2 weeks ago had an off game, couldn't hold on to the football. They turned the ball over. They have a quarterback, Will Levis, that came from Penn State, and he was a second-string quarterback, essentially. He was the running quarterback at Penn State. And I'll put our network to blame for this. When you have an entire network that covers just one conference, what do? When you fill programming? You put quarterbacks on a pedestal. I mean, it's the first thing that happens, and I've seen it now for 5 years. No matter who you are, we take every quarterback that's slated to start in this conference and we put them on the pedestal. And more often than not, they get glory before they take a bad step. Yep. Will Levis is showing who he is. He had a major turnover game 2 weeks ago on the road at Mississippi State. They can't survive with turnovers, and then Leach started playing ball control against them. It's going to be unfair to say, but I think what you see with this kind of roller coaster that Kentucky's going through right now is it. Let's face it, there are limitations in some places. Like, you have to be near perfect for an 11-win season at Kentucky. I mean, it's really, really hard. And they've done a tremendous job recruiting, and their blueprint to go into Big Ten country and to draw guys down and say, you can play in the SEC and start for us, where you may go ride the bench at Penn State for a couple years, or you'll never see the field at Ohio State, come down here and play in in the best conference in college football. It works, and it continues to work. But I wonder if this season doesn't cause Mark Stoops to look longingly at a more traditional football job than what he has in Lexington.
Yeah, very easily you could see that happen. It's kind of funny how I was saying last week that Florida's best win is a 2-point loss against Alabama. And now it looks like maybe their best win was beating Tennessee, because all of a sudden Tennessee's caught fire, and everybody in Alabama, I can't wait to hear Feinbaum today, how did we almost lose that game? What's wrong with us? We're terrible.
Well, Alabama certainly doesn't look like the Alabama that we're used to. No. And Nick Saban, after that game, just kind of shrugged his shoulders and said, well, we won. That's not what we're used to hearing from Nick Saban either. So the entire season has been chaotic. I heard earlier you were talking about the impact of the home team on college football this year. I didn't see originally what the crowd was like at South Carolina. I'd heard that it was really good, which quite frankly surprised me.
70 is what they announced, yeah.
Yeah, and that's a loud 70. You know what I mean? Like the people who show up for a night game in the cold in Columbia, they want to be there. The impact is real. I mean, I felt it when we were at Texas A&M early this season, and maybe it feels more impactful because we didn't have it, and we're now, like, those of us that go, we're kind of awash by it and can feel it. Arkansas Saturday afternoon, far from a sellout. And but the people that were there were as loud as I remember being at Arkansas. So those crowds are definitely home crowds impacting games. There's no question.
No, there's no doubt about it. I haven't been to a game this year. My goal was on my first year of retirement, not to go to a football game. But it comes through on the television. It comes through how crazy it is, and you can tell by the way the players are playing. So I don't know. I mean, when we have the college football playoff rankings come out tonight, do you think Alabama will still be number 2?
Well, listen, I wasn't happy with the way the rankings came out last week. I thought Cincinnati should have been higher. There seems to be a cap, and when Gary Barta comes out and says we respect what you've done, but then just leave that part out, okay? You don't. Now, if you want to say at the end of the season, after a close win against Tulsa and the teams that they have left, SMU, Houston, whoever they end up drawing, say, well, their resume doesn't match up now, that's fine. But college football is the ultimate small sample size sport. We're right. First week in November, and at that point, Cincinnati had a huge win on the road against Notre Dame. By the way, Notre Dame won again. They had a win against Indiana, the Big Ten. All their metrics look just as good or better than Michigan State. I would be. To me, Cincinnati, Oklahoma's game control and all that. So you just watch Oklahoma or look at their scores. They haven't been impressive. They're undefeated by default, and if they can stay there, they'll climb. But they deserve to be further down. Cincinnati deserves to be higher up. The problem with dropping Alabama any points of substance is that everybody looked bad this weekend.
Yeah, they did.
Including Ohio State, which almost lost Nebraska. If they had better special teams, maybe the Buckeyes take a loss in that one. So it kind of reminds me of 2007, just the chaos that we have, and I don't think we're done with it yet. I mean, I think this goes all the way through to the end of the season, or at least through conference championship weekend, except for Georgia, right? I mean, put Georgia on the pedestal. I think I've said this before. I think Georgia picked a great year to have the best team it's ever had, because I don't think there's anybody out there that can really challenge them. Like look, winning is hard. So I give Oklahoma more credit than the committee is, because they keep winning, and I think it's important that you keep winning. But there's no team where I go, well, they'll beat Georgia. They could beat Georgia. South Carolina beat Florida. I mean, anything can happen, But I just don't see anybody that can challenge them and challenge that defense. I mean, it is an NFL type defense. Guys who run fast and are big balls of muscle. That was the first thing that hit me when I was a younger broadcaster. I was working in the minors, and we had a series in Jacksonville, and I had a buddy that worked for the Jags. So I went over there during camp and was on the field just kind of watching. And I was blown away. When you get up next to an NFL guy, first of all, I'm not a small dude. They're humongous. That's expected, right? I mean, we can all read the height and weight. But the speed in which they move on Sundays is completely different given what they're pulling around than what we see on Saturdays. All of Georgia's defensive line is like that. It's so good that Kirby's using them in goal line situations, putting them in a tight end, putting them in a fullback, and just they did that against Missouri, and the poor Missouri guys turned and ran to the first row of the bleachers. I've never seen the linebackers and defensive backs bail on a play as fast as they did.
You know, I don't watch film. I'm not an NFL guy. But if I had the fourth pick in the draft or something like that, I would take Jordan Davis. I think he's going to be a guy. His stats won't be great, but he will be a dominant force. That's how good he is. Hey, what game do you have this week before we let you go?
This week we got Arkansas at LSU, battle for the boot. It'll be interesting. That game's going to be interesting on its own, but I'm really curious based on what Alabama showed us. Alabama still has Arkansas remaining, right?
Yeah.
You know, Arkansas is far from a perfect team, but obviously Alabama isn't either. Everyone keeps pointing to the Iron Bowl and saying, you know, maybe Auburn can trip them up. They have in the past. They're going to get all they can handle from Arkansas too. So that's one thing for me to keep my eye on the rest of this SEC season. And
you have no idea what LSU team will show up. So
no idea. But I will say this. For all the critics that were all over Ed Ogeron and why his team wasn't performing, I mean, the first thing I looked at was injuries. They've had a ton of dudes injured.
Yeah.
But they haven't quit on him.
They have not.
You don't quit on a team and go in and almost win at Alabama. That's not a team that's quit.
No, absolutely. Tom, always great talking to you, buddy, and can't wait to watch the game Saturday night. Always like you have become the voice of Saturday night college football, in my opinion.
Well, thank you. It's very nice of you to say. I hope in your retirement that I don't see you at a stadium anytime soon.
You probably won't. Maybe a baseball stadium. Maybe it won't.
All right, I'll take it.
All right. Tom, thanks a lot, buddy. We'll see you, buddy.
See you, buddy.
All right, Tom Hart from ESPN does a great job. He is, to me, the voice of Saturday night because I'm so into SEC football. I mean, like I said this before, I wasn't going to let Florida – crappy football team, which they are crappy, right? You're 4-5, you're crappy. You qualify as crappy. I wasn't going to let them ruin my football season, but they've come pretty damn close right now. I'll tell you, it's pretty hard. It's hard to stay into it, but I'm going to continue staying into it. And like I said, Tom Hart, to me, is the voice of Saturday night college football. I don't watch those Big Ten games with Herb Street and those guys. I watch Tom. All right, we want to do one thing before we get out of here for the first break or the last break, okay? So let's do – I tell you what we'll do. The Leonardo's at Millhopper Quick Picks. Let's do that. And just to let you know, Friday, Robbie Andrew will be here. Robbie Andrew will make a decision. Either Robbie Andrew will or Wayne Hogan will. Wayne Hogan's also going to be on the show for a little bit. We may let him make the decision. We may let him pick a number. We're trying to think of a funny way or fun way to do it. But I'll tell you, 44 people are already in the drawing we had so much response during this segment of these picks. So we'll get that done, and we'll have one more chance. And you got to do it quick because the game's tonight, Chicago at Pittsburgh. You got to get the pick in. This is only for the loyal listeners because not time to get it up on the web or anything, but just Chicago at Pittsburgh. Give me a winner, and you can qualify. 44 people though, so it's going to be. I'm going to have to figure out how to do this. I got an idea though. It's going to be kind of cool. So that is Leonardo's at Millhopper Quick Picks. We thank Kyle so much for everything he does. So we'll be back with more of Another Dooley Noted Podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Shackow and Mercandani Studios.
Car accidents, trucking accidents, motorcycle accidents, and wrongful death. If injured or killed by the negligence of others, who will fight for the compensation you deserve? Shackow and Mercadante, 5 lawyers, more than 100 years of combined legal experience, millions in settlements and verdicts. Call Shakow and Mercadante, 371-3000. Rebuilding lives.
Titan MRI, North Central Florida's premier independent diagnostic testing MRI facility. At Titan MRI, we're focused on you, the patient, having a great customer experience. Our MRI equipment is modern and 75% quieter than any unit in its class. And our MRI unit has one of the largest openings of any of the newer high-strength MRI units, which allows comfortable scanning for potential claustrophobic and larger patients. At Titan MRI, we look forward to serving you.
Another Duly Noted podcast comes to you from the Coach's Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill and Celebration Point. You can watch and listen to us on Facebook and YouTube for every podcast that we do on Mondays and Fridays at 2 o'clock. Listen to the podcast whenever on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Overcast, any of the other 39 platforms where you can find this podcast or your favorite podcast. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments section below or call me if you want to do some advertising at 352-317-3444. Hey, this is Pat Dooley for the Gainesville Quarterback Club, and they are having a trial membership here at the end of the season. It's really a great deal. We've talked about them doing it at the beginning of the season, and what they're doing is they're offering the next 3 meetings for $100. And believe me, you get a full meal out of this, too. Every one of these meetings. It's great speakers. The meeting dates for this are November 9th, 16th, and 23rd as we wrap up this college football season. Anyone interested in taking advantage of this trial membership can RSVP the membership leader at bob.bagley@pauldavis.com. Or you can just pay at the door.
Great food, great atmosphere, a diverse menu, everything made from scratch, plenty of space, and locally owned. These are all the characteristics of a great restaurant, and you can find each and every one of them right here in Gainesville at Ballyhoo Grill. Ballyhoo Grill prepares all of their food fresh every day, from their salad dressing to their award-winning soups. Bring your family and enjoy dinner under the Tim Trebo Tiki Hut while listening to live music. Or if you're running low on time to eat out, they also deliver through Uber Eats, Bite Squad, and Postmates. A Gainesville staple that's been open for over 30 years. Check out Ballyhoo Grill on Facebook or at ballyhoogrill.com.
Hello there, everybody. I'm Pat Dooley, of course, from Another Dooley Noted Podcast. And this is a great Adam Brewer, and he's just opened up a place here, Adam Brewer To Go. What would give you the idea to do this, to have a to-go place?
We really like the fast concept, being able to get the barbecue. Now we have this new online ordering. So before it was a call ahead carry out, quick service. We have like a curbside kind of a deal where everything's ready to go for you. And then we thought, wow, we have a really great dine-in concept, but how can we make this streamlined for the customer and make it easy and accessible for all parts of town?
Adam's Rib Co. To Go. Come on down and enjoy it. Okay, welcome back to Another Duly Noted Podcast from the Titan MR sponsorship and from the Shakow Merchandise Studios. I just got a call from Patrick Young, so I kind of was a little discombobulated. I'm trying to do a story on him for the Alumni Magazine. Anyway, appreciate Tom Hart, man. I love that guy. He's so much fun to talk to. Appreciate him coming on. And again, Robbie will be on Friday along with the great Wayne Hogan. We'll talk about the Rocky Blyer, an evening with Rocky Blyer, which they're going to have out here for the Florida Rising Stars Foundation. I'm looking at it because there's a big poster right here. All right, it is time for Hand Law 3 Things. 3 Things. It's presented by Hand Law, a Florida law firm which helps clients with government. You can learn more about Hand Law by visiting its website at www.hand.law. The firm is available for consultation in Jacksonville. I actually heard from Chris this weekend. We were commiserating. I heard from a lot of people this weekend. A lot of people, including my wife, who came banging in because I watched the game by myself in the office because I'm taking notes. I'm looking at stats. I'm doing this, and I don't want the sound on. So all of a sudden, she just comes slamming in the door. I want everybody fired. She was Well, two of them did get fired, so, not everybody did. But she was like, I guarantee you, in unison, I think after that one play, and this is third and Grantham. This is in its definition. It's 3rd and 8. They've got the ball like on the 20 of South Carolina going in, but it's 3rd and 8. You get a stop, you kick a field goal. It's 13-10. So you make them kick a field goal at 16-10, go down, have a good offensive drive, score, you take the lead in the halftime maybe. No. They call a blitz, and the blitz comes from a weird, guys are all blitzing from one side, and nobody covers their best receiver, Josh Vann. He is standing so wide open. It is the most wide open I've ever seen a receiver in the history of football, and that includes when we used to play at the Blood Bowl back in St. Augustine. We called it the Blood Bowl because there were a lot of rocks in the field, so guys would come up bloody a lot, so it was a Blood Bowl. I've never seen anybody wide open there. It was ridiculous. And that, to me, today Dan said, hey, look, it was the last straw. Yeah, that play may have been the last straw. Where was I going with this? I forgot what I was talking about. Anyway, the hand law, 3 things. So we did commiserate. There was a lot of commiseration going on, and we appreciate Chris Hand for everything he does, including sponsoring Robbie Andrews' appearances, which he will do again on Friday. So that's cool. Cool, man. All right. Number 1 on hand law, 3 things here from the Shaq Allen Mercadante Studios. College football playoff rankings will come out tomorrow night. I'm sorry. Look, it's interesting. It's stuff to talk about. And I've said this all along. People get so offended by things that are just there, and we talk about them, and they go, well, those rankings are stupid. Why do they come out with them now? Why don't they wait till the end? Well, because you're talking about it. Don't you get it? The whole world is based on, are you going to talk about this? Will you talk about this? So this is what they came up with this college football playoff, to do the rankings midway or so through the season. So we talk about it. They don't mean that much. I know everybody thinks they do. Well, if you're 4th, you can't go. No, don't worry about it. Everything will all play out. We know Georgia will be 1. There's no doubt about that. They should probably be 2 and 3 too. That's how good they're playing. I think Alabama will stay 2. I'm making a prediction here. This is my prediction. I think Oregon will be 3, even though, Oregon had a nice win, beating Washington on Saturday. But Stanford, their only loss, Stanford got beat, I think, 42-7 or something by Utah. So that's their loss. Their loss cannot be any worse than anybody's is going to be. But still, that win over Ohio State is huge. I think Cincinnati will be up to 4. I think they'll move them up, even though they were a foot away. They were like this far, not even a foot. That's not a foot. That's an inch. They were this close to losing, or at least tying that game and going to overtime. But I still think they'll be number 1. Like I said before, it's hard to win football games. I think they'll have Oklahoma 4 and Ohio State 5. But all things will even out eventually. They will all these games have got to be played. Don't forget, you're talking about, and we'll get to the Alex Wesley Construction 12-pack in a minute, but, we've got 3 teams from the pack or from the Big Ten all sitting there right together, and they're all going to play each other. So guess what? That'll be figured out. People just can't lose your minds over things like that. It's just silly. All right, number 2 on the hand law, 3 things from the Shaq Allen Mercadante Studios. Arizona and UNLV both won games. And I know Evan's sitting there going, well, why do we care about that? Well, everybody has a win now. Every team in the country has won a game in Division I, or whatever you want to call it, FCS or FBS, because those are the last 2. So they both won. Now, what we don't have, we have 8 teams that have not won a conference game. So I'll keep an eye on this, and I'll give them to you. Tulane, Duke, Kansas, FIU, you can count them, Indiana, Vanderbilt, and Arkansas State and Southern Miss. Arkansas State, I believe, is coached by Butch Jones. I think he's 1-8 now, the former Tennessee coach. Nice hire there. All right. And finally, number 3, I don't know how they did it. I really don't know how they did it. But somehow I was rooting for the Jaguars on Sunday. And I've been not a Jaguars fan. In fact, I've been an anti-Jaguars fan. I could spend 30 minutes giving you all the reasons for it, okay? None of them are good. None of them make sense, but they're there. And I'm not going to bore you with it, why I wasn't. Maybe it's because of Charlie. I talk to Charlie every once in a while. Maybe it's because Urban has been great to me. I don't agree with a lot of things he's done. Please don't show him humping that girl or that girl humping him again. Well, if you can find it, go ahead and do it. But all of a sudden on Saturday or Sunday, I'm watching the game and I'm rooting for them. And they won that game. It was an unbelievable defensive effort. Take note, Dan Mullen, because Charlie Strong's a part of that defensive staff. But I was rooting for them, and that was an unbelievable win for them. Good for them. They've got 2 wins, and the joy on Urban's face was something that was nice to see. Because I don't dislike Urban Meyer in any way. I like him a lot. He's been great to me in my life. But there are things he's done that I haven't agreed with that I thought were way out of line, as you know. Not, here, there, at Ohio State. Certainly now that he's in Jacksonville, he's done a couple of things that were not smart. But that was good to see him get that win. Like this. This is a good example of it. Yeah. Oh, my gosh. All right. Things that you shouldn't do in public, because there are cameras now. All right, so that is the hand law of 3 things, and we appreciate Chris Hand. Let us go to the Adams Ribco to Go Gator of the weekend, and obviously, I almost made the Gator of the weekend was Mohamed Diabate, because he had 11 tackles in that game. He played as hard as he could. He wasn't a guy who quit. And then he came out with a statement on Twitter afterwards saying, hey, I went as hard as I could, and this is when you find out. It was a beautiful statement that he had, so I was going to make it him, but then I said, nah, because Harrison Bader won the Gold Glove, which is huge because those are hard to win. So congratulations, his first Gold Glove. The Cardinals had 5, and I'm like, okay. That's good. How many World Series you win this year, Cardinals? No. I'm trying to think of the team that won the World Series. Well, Adam Duvall got one. Max Fried got one as well, Gold Glove. But anyway, I'm not trying to rub it in. But, hey, I'm happy for Harrison Bader. I always liked the guy, always a great player. And it was a run, that run of center fielders. And it continues today, although I don't think Judd Fabian played well in the field last year. I think he'll come back and have a great year this year. But that run of center fielders with Buddy Reed and Dendecker and Bader, and it's been unbelievable at the University of Florida, and continues. I think Judd will have a great year this year, so we'll see how that goes. But Harrison Bader is our Adams Ribco to Go Gator of the weekend here, live from the Shackow and Merck and Donne studios. It is time, as we do every Monday, and today is Monday, right? It is time for our Alex Wesley Construction 12-pack. Alex Wesley Construction, love where you live. For those of you who don't know why we do 12, it's because eventually we'll be at a 12-team playoff, hopefully. It's still going back and forth between 8 12. It'll be 8 or 12. We may have to make it an 8-pack eventually. But we appreciate Alex Wesley for being a sponsor of this segment, which is a lot of fun to do. Obviously, Georgia's won. I don't agree with all these people that keep saying Oklahoma should be like 7, 8, 5. And I don't think they will be in the top 4. But they've won every game. I know it hasn't looked great, but it's all about winning the games. You could go 0-12 and lose every game by 1, and everybody say, well, you look good, though. I like Oklahoma at number 2. That's where I'm putting them, and I'm putting Alabama at 3. I mean, there was a ball thrown in the end zone that if the right guy had caught it, Alabama would have another loss, and they would be out of the rankings. Maybe not out of the top 12, but they'd be close. And then I'm putting Cincinnati 4, even though Cincinnati, look, again, they win every game. They've got that Notre Dame win keeps looking better and better. Notre Dame keeps winning. So I've got them 4. I've got Oregon 5. Again, I know they had a nice win this week. That Stanford loss is just still there. It's there, you know. Just like Cincinnati's win over Notre Dame is here, that loss to Stanford is there. Notre Dame at number 6, they just keep winning. You know, and there is a path for them to get in the playoff, which I know everybody's going to go, no, not again, Notre Dame in the playoff. Oh, just here's all I know to do. Bet the other team and and give the points because they're going to beat them, and that's what always happens. Number 7, I got Michigan State, and this is where I was talking about earlier. Michigan State 7, Michigan 8, Ohio State 9. They're going to work it all out. One of them's going to emerge. Well, maybe what if they all win-lose, you know, if there's one beats Michigan State beats Michigan, or they already did beat Michigan. Okay, Michigan State, Ohio State, I think is next week, and then Michigan, Ohio State, and it still could be convoluted, but I think the team that wins 2 games out of those 3 teams, if somebody goes 2-0, they'll be in the playoff. 10, I've got Wake Forest. I'm not going to just demolish Wake Forest because they lost a game by 3 to North Carolina. That was a totally entertaining game, by the way. I loved watching that game. That was a great thing, and that's again why I talked about earlier. I'm not letting the Gators ruin this season for me. And the games leading up to it were unbelievable. I mean, Miami just keeps playing these incredible games every week. Hopefully they play a really good one this week. They have FSU. So I got Wake Forest 10, Texas A&M 11, even with 2 losses because Texas A&M has so many good wins. Yeah, it's very rare when you beat Auburn and Alabama the same year. I know LSU did it a couple of years ago, but it's hard to do, believe me, because it's hard to beat Alabama. But they've done that this year, and they've done it with an offense that's just a mess. They're struggling. And then in 12th, I've got the University of Texas at San Antonio, which is the only one of only 4 undefeated teams still left. I'm giving them credit. I think they're 15th in the latest AP poll, actually. Undefeated UTSA. Can't name a player, can't name their coach. I think Larry Coker coached them for a while, didn't he? I don't even know who their coach is, but I'm putting them number 12. And that, for today, is our Alex Wesley Construction 12-pack here live from the Shack Al Mercandone Studios. Let's get to the Hesser and Kipke Monday spreads. A lot of good ones. We got to lead off with Penn State because I know that Ken Hester loves his Penn State team. And, of course, the Monday spreads are brought to you by Hesser and Kipke, a law firm in Hale Plantation specializing in employment, workers' comp, and family law. Visit their website at www.hklawfl.com or call Ken and Jennifer at 352-339-9920. Michigan, Penn State has gone back and forth already. It's now a pick'em. That's an interesting game because the game is at Penn State. NC State is getting 2 points at Wake Forest. I do not bet on that game. I have no clue what's going to happen there. Texas A&M is giving 2 at Ole Miss. I like Ole Miss in that game. Don't count on me because right before the Florida game, I put out a tweet and I go, because I had heard about all these sicknesses and everything, I go, I like the under in this game because South Carolina's not going to be able to score, right? So the over-under was 51. So what happens? They score 40 on their own. Don't count on me for betting advice. Georgia's only a 20.5-point favorite over Tennessee, but I think that game might be interesting. That'll be a game I'm looking forward to watching. Miami, 3-point favorite over FSU at FSU. FSU, again, is playing better, but they just can't seem to get wins, which is fine with me. Mississippi State getting 5 points at Auburn, 5.5 points at Auburn. And then South Carolina getting 1 point at Missouri. I guarantee you Missouri wins that game. South Carolina goes out and doesn't play worth a crap. All that stuff from this week is gone. That's what happens, and I guarantee it. I will guarantee it. Solid cold lock. Arkansas 2.5-point underdog or 2.5-point favorite over LSU at LSU. LSU plays good at home, man. They're a different team there. And Notre Dame 5-point favorite over Virginia. So that is the Hesser and Kipke Monday spreads. We always love bringing them to you. And, of course, we love bringing to you the games of the week on Friday from Hesser and Kipke as well. Thanks so much to our sponsors who've been such a great part of this show so far. And we keep, I think today's number 90, right? 90 shows. 91. Okay, 91. 92. And it could be 93 by the time we're done. But we will be back on Friday to give you another show. Robbie Andrew will be here. Wayne Hogan will be here to talk a little bit about Florida Rising Star. And the evening with Rocky Blyer, we'll get him on as well. Thanks so much to Tom Hart. And especially thanks to Evan, my great producer, who makes me look good as he can make me look, which is impossible to make me look good. But we will be back on Friday. Appreciate everybody. Oh, by the way, we did the show early Thursday so we could play in that Stop Children's Cancer tournament Friday, and we won. We won the whole tournament. Jeff Cardozo and me and Brian Searing and Scott Carvalho. We won, and we won easy. 15 under. We were unbelievable. And I made a lot of putts. I didn't get out of the cart a lot, though. All right, that's going to do it for today's Another Duly Noted Podcast. Thanks again to Titan MRI and Shakow Mercandane, the studio name, and all of our other sponsors. We'll be back again Friday. Until then, I'm Pat Dooley saying I'm deep, I'm way back, and I am out of here.